Here's something interesting. Last month, I was working with a business owner who had perfect systems. Documented processes? Check. Team training? Complete. Automation tools? All set up. Yet, he was working more hours than when he started. In fact, he was more trapped than ever. Here's the fascinating part. This isn't rare, it's the norm. For the past 3 years, we've seen this exact pattern with businesses doing 500k to 10 million in revenue. The cycle looks like this. You build systems to free time. You document everything, you train your team, and you implement automation. And somehow, you end up being more essential to the business, not less. If you're experiencing this, you're not alone. And most importantly, it's not your fault. Here's what's actually happening. Most business systems are built backwards. Let me explain. When most business owners build systems, they follow this logical path. Document what you do, train others to do it, and automate where possible. Sounds logical, right? And here's the problem. This approach practically guarantees you'll become more trapped in your business. Here's why. First, you're documenting dependency. Every time you create a process that relies on your knowledge, approval, or oversight, you're not building a system. You're documenting how everything depends on you. Funny, right? Second, you're automating bottlenecks. When you automate current processes, you're often just making it more efficient for everything to flow back to you. Third, you're scaling complexity. Each new system adds another layer you need to manage, another process you need to oversee, and another point of failure that you need to monitor. So, what's the solution? Over the past 3 years, working with over 50 businesses, we've developed something we call Inverse Systems Framework. Instead of starting with what you do, you start with what you want to stop doing. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Take one of our clients, a marketing agency doing over $3 million a year. The owner was trapped in client strategy sessions. The conventional approach would be document how we run strategy, train others to do it this way, and set up automations to support it. Instead, we did something completely different. We asked 3 questions. What decisions are you actually making in these sessions? What information do you need to make these decisions? And where does this information really come from? Here's what we discovered. 90% of his strategic decisions were actually pattern recognition. He'd seen these similar situations before and knew what worked. This completely changed our approach. Instead of documenting his processes, we documented his patterns. Before, we had a 15-page process document about how to run strategy sessions. After, a decision tree that captured this pattern recognition. The results? Strategy sessions now run without him. Quality actually improved, and client satisfaction went up by 40%. But here's the really interesting part. When you build systems this way, something fascinating happens. Your business starts evolving without you. Let me show you what I mean. In traditional systems, you spot an improvement, you update the process, you retrain everyone, and you monitor adoption. But in inverse systems, the team spots the patterns, they suggest improvements, and the system evolves naturally. You only handle exceptions. Here's a real example. Remember that marketing agency? 3 months after implementing the Inverse framework, the team discovered a pattern that we missed. Clients in the SaaS industry needed a completely different approach than clients in e-commerce. In a traditional system, this is what it would have meant. The owner would have needed to spot the pattern. He would have to do process update, new documentation, and retraining. Instead, because we built the system around pattern recognition rather than procedures, the team documented the pattern, updated the decision tree, and tested the new approach. The owner's involvement, a 30-minute review of the changes. Now, let me show you exactly how this looks in practice, because here's where most people get stuck. They understand the concept, but the implementation feels risky. After all, you're replacing detailed processes with decision frameworks. So, let me show you how we do this. Step 1. Pattern mining. We start by asking one simple question. In the last month, what decisions did you make that took more than 5 minutes? These are your high leverage points. Step 2. Pattern documentation. For each decision, we map the information you used, the questions you asked, the patterns you recognized, and the decisions you made. Step 3. Decision tree creation. Here's where it gets interesting. Instead of writing out every possible scenario, we create simple decision trees. Like this one from our marketing example. If client type is SaaS, then follow path 1. If client is e-commerce, then follow path B. If we see pattern X, we do Y. The key? We're not documenting procedures, we're documenting decision patterns. Now, here's where most business owners push back. But my business is different, it's more complex. There are too many variables. Let me address this directly. We've implemented this across software companies, marketing agencies, coaching, local businesses, hotels, private equity companies, and here's what we found. The more complex your business, the better this works. Why? Because complexity is exactly what makes traditional systems fail. The more complex your business, the longer your process document becomes. The more exceptions you need to handle, the more you become the bottleneck. Let me show you what happens when businesses actually make this shift. Take this software company we worked with. The CEO was reviewing every single feature specification. You know how it goes. They tried to fix it the traditional way, created this massive 50-page documentation process. And guess what happened? They created even more bottlenecks. The CEO was now reviewing documents about how to review documents. But when we applied our inverse framework, everything changed. We mapped out how the CEO was making these decisions, created a simple decision tree, and now the team handles 90% of the decisions on their own. And the CEO, they only step in for major strategic shifts. They try the obvious solution, train more strategies. But the quality? All over the place. Some clients were happy, others not so much. Then we came in with our approach.
Hey, real quick, if you struggle with any of the problems that we mentioned in this video and you want to see how these systems would look like in your business, then go to revampify.eu and apply to become a partner of us. Okay, back to the video.
Instead of trying to clone the owner, we mapped out their decision patterns and built a simple strategy tree. Remember how we talked about systems that evolve without you? Let me show you what happened 6 months later. The teams started seeing patterns we never even noticed. They spotted client success patterns we missed. They started preventing problems before they happened. They identified growth opportunities we never saw coming. Why doesn't this happen with traditional systems though? Because everything, and I mean everything, has to flow through you. Teams are just following procedures. Innovation gets stuck because every new idea needs your approval. But when you build pattern-based systems, something magical happens. Teams start thinking in patterns. The systems evolve naturally. Your business literally becomes smarter every week. And you know what's fascinating? When we check in with these businesses a year later, they tell us something we never expected. Sure, they got what they wanted. More freedom, better systems, and higher profits. But that's not what excites them the most. What really blows their mind is watching their teams evolve. What really blows their mind is watching their teams evolve. These are the same people who used to ask the questions every single day. The same people who couldn't make decisions without them. Now, they're spotting opportunities the owner never even saw. Let me give you a perfect example. Remember that software company I mentioned? Last month, their team came up with an entirely new feature category. Not because the owner told them to, not because they followed some process, but because they started seeing patterns in customer behaviors that nobody else noticed. This is what happens when you stop trying to clone yourself and start building pattern recognition into your business. Look, I know this is different from what most business consultants will tell you. They'll say you need more documentation, more processes, and more systems. But if you're still watching this video, I'm guessing those traditional approaches haven't quite worked for you. Want to see how this could work in your specific business? Let's talk. No pitch, no pressure, just a conversation about your business and how these patterns might already exist in your world. Because here's the truth. You've already built the hard part. You've built a successful business. You've developed these patterns. Now it's just about making them work without you. Thank you for watching.